Hi, my name is Heath Jones, and welcome to this episode of the Northwood Podcast. Today's episode is called Do Seeds Die? And seeds being a metaphor for the efforts and resources that we put into growing, cultivating life here. God's realm, as we use, as we say in churchy terms, God's realm on earth. And some of us even give our very lives to this effort. My vocation, and some quite literally have given their lives. But to what end? Sometimes it seems as though our efforts are fruitless. No pun intended, actually, pun intended. And seeds that we plant in the name of love, they die. So we'll be talking over this conundrum later, what to do about our efforts that seem to bear no fruit in life. But first, some housekeeping. This podcast is brought to you by Northwood Christian Church, the church I pastor, located in Indianapolis, Indiana, with more than a little help from the All Indiana Podcast Network. In case you don't know, the All Indiana Podcast Network produces podcasts made by Hoosiers and often of topics of interest to folks across our state. Hoosiers being the silly name people from Indiana call themselves. And you should check them out, as there is sure to be something there for you. Even if you live out of state, you should check in and see what the All Indiana Podcast Network has to offer. While we're all in Indiana, we who make them, the topics run the gambit, and I'm sure there's something for you. If you're interested, you should visit wishtv.com/podcasts. That's wishtv.com/podcasts. And if you'd like to learn more about us, please visit our website at www.indncc.org. That's indncc.org. Or check us out on Facebook by searching for Northwood Christian Church, then Indiana as well, or Indianapolis, so you find the right Northwood Christian Church. Or you can write directly to me. My email is Heath, that's my name, Heath, at indncc.org. But enough housekeeping for now. Here in a moment, we'll be discussing a passage from the Bible found in the Gospel of John, chapter 12, specifically verses 20 through 26. But first, we need to pause for some ads for our podcast audience. And if this means you, we'll catch you after these messages. And we're back. And as I was saying, our scripture passage today is found in John chapter 12, verses 20 through 26. And to give it some context before we read it, Jesus has just had his triumphal entry. That is, he has just entered Jerusalem, the holy city, and just before a large festival. And as he entered, a procession formed around him. And the Gospels record how he was received as the city was expected to receive a high governing official, all fanfare, pomp and circumstance, like you would do for a king or a high-ranking army officer. And for Jesus to receive that kind of treatment, well, this indicated the influence that Jesus was gaining over the masses, and this was viewed as a threat to the Roman state and the local governing officials. Hint, this is why they had him executed. More on that in 2 weeks. But that being said, let's turn to the text after Jesus has made this entry, and we will start reading at verse 20 of chapter 12 and go on through 26. And it reads, "Now among those who went up to worship at the festival were some Greeks. They came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, and said to him, 'Sir, we wish to see Jesus.' Philip went and told Andrew. Then Andrew and Philip went and told Jesus. Jesus answered them, 'The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Very truly, I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Those who love their life lose it, and those who hate their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, there will my servant be also. Whoever serves me, the Father will honor.'" The next time you plant a seed in the dirt, say to yourself, "There, I have killed it." And this, of course, would be a strange thing to say because, we're so familiar with the concept of planting and harvesting that we view the falling of a seed into the earth as a new beginning. For we know that in the coming weeks and months, that seed we hope, will probably, if it's well planted, will sprout and inch towards the sun. And its rising is usually seen by the gardener or those who appreciate the garden as an exuberant celebration of life. And what could be more alive than a tender shoot pulling water from its roots while spreading leaves to catch the light above? Life from the sun, life from the earth. Beautiful. But let's throw off our modern understanding of horticulture. Actually, an ancient understanding too. It's not new news how this stuff works. But let's throw off our understanding a second to consider the mystery packed in this short saying of Jesus. By now, we've observed so many seeds breaking forth to new life, you and I, that the whole process has maybe become mundane or rhythmic, so much as to not be surprising when we see the new life. But when you step back and consider things anew, as if for the first time, the entire process is counterintuitive. In temperate climates, a plant spends the hot summer months spreading out and swelling to newer and fuller life. Leaves stretch out eagerly, basking in yellow rays. Branches and vines are laden with fruit, bright in color sometimes, rich in flavor sometimes. Then, just when things seem like they're going well for the plant begins to fade. The frost comes, and the fruit's bright color begins to wane. The leaves begin to wither. The fruit begins to shrivel, falls to the ground, and is eventually swallowed by the earth. If you didn't know what would happen next year when the spring came, you would think that it had died. And this is a kind of form of dying if we're using the metaphor that Jesus is giving us, a way of letting go of something in expectation that more life will come. But it is a kind of letting go as well. Imagine that you hold a seed in your hand. It's a seed that you've long cherished, for you have held it for a long time. Why? Well, because you know that contained in that seed is something special. However, you are loath to let it go. For if you do, you feel as though you will lose it all. Does that sound far-fetched? It's not. I've seen it happen. Several years ago, my daughter was playing in our backyard in the moments before I took her to school. She was just milling about as I was grabbing the last few things that go out the back door to find that she had made what was in her mind, a great discovery. I approached her and she said, "Dad, look." And on the ground, she had created a little pile of small black beads. Now, first, I was afraid that they were rabbit droppings, but on closer examination, I discovered that they were seeds. They were about the size of small blueberries, but they were coal black. And she had pulled them from the pod of a plant that lay shriveled on the ground. That plant, in her mind, had died. You see? It had no more life in it, but the seeds, somehow she knew they were special. And I knew this because when I asked for them, she drew her hand back, wondering if her dad were going to throw them away. I assured her, no, I'm not going to throw them away, because I didn't want to pick a fight with that, at the time, 5-year-old in the early morning hours. However, I have a sneaking suspicion that she is going to do the same thing with those seeds as she does with her collection of Buckeyes. I think she's going to hoard them. And if she does, it will be difficult for her to let them go the longer that goes on. She will hold on to those seeds like she holds on to those Buckeyes. And she really ought to know better. She should, because the last year we had planted a garden together. And we took seeds, little seeds, smaller seeds. I guess some were about the size of a blueberry. And doesn't matter. And those seeds, the important point is they looked every bit as dead as the ones my daughter hoards in her room. And we let those fall to the earth. And so I showed her how to cut a small little furrow with her finger in the raised bed garden, and how to gently lay the small carrot seeds to rest. And in the following weeks, we marveled at how the little seeds came alive, creating new life. What's more, those plants had created seeds of their own, and life gives way to life, gives way to life. So my daughter has seen what may happen if you are able to let seeds go. I recently heard a story about, well, I guess recently, it's been some time now, but I heard a story about archaeologists who were digging in Egypt, and they found amongst pottery shards and artifacts and dry, dusty things some wheat seeds, like very much like the seeds they would have had in mind in this parable that Jesus told in the passage we just read. And those that found them estimated that they were approximately 5,000 years old. So think about that, wrapped in dust for 5,000 years. Seeds aren't good for much if they're just sitting there. For 5,000 years, they lay, seemingly dead and without life. However, someone decided to plant a few of them, and wouldn't you know it, they actually grew. Seeds that had lain dormant for 5 millennia came to life and produced new life. But the parable, to take it metaphorically, go back into that world. If the seeds are not planted, if you don't let go of what you have for the life of the world, it doesn't do very much good. Your talents, your abilities, your efforts, which is what seeds and fruits are a metaphor for here. And what I hope is to teach my children that the more they cling fixedly to what they have, the more they will miss in life, unless we are willing to let go of what we have, or to hold what we have with an open hand. At least we will not find the life that comes after letting go. But there are countless ways for us to do this, and there are thousands of things that we might have to let go of and lose. When a woman gives her time and resources to show love and bring life to the poor, she dies a kind of death. She lets go of seeds of life. She dies in small ways to herself. She loses something, small parts of her life's energy, large parts of her life's energy, but many are drawn to the love she gives, and what she receives in the joy of loving gives her more in repayment than what she gives, she believes. I've met her. I have someone specific in mind. As if repayment were ever the point. But she had to die first, let go of some things. When a man gives of his time and resources to provide a constant and sustainable water supply to people who would otherwise die of thirst or disease, he dies a kind of death. He dies in small ways to himself. He loses something, some small parts or large parts of his life's energy, his time, his resources, from his money to his literal labor. But many are drawn to what he gives and what he receives. And like the woman, the joy that giving brings us when we discover that the joy we receive from the letting go for the life of the world is more than enough reward, as if, again, reward were the point. Even children can participate in the realm of God. In fact, Jesus made sure we knew that they do participate in the realm of God. And I've known children who let go of Christmas presents or gifts and presents, things they don't need around Christmas time, so that some child might receive a blessing from what they let go. Spent tears, emotional pain, and hours lost for a friend or a loved one who is enslaved to an addiction. That's its own kind of death. Seeds fall to the ground in hopes that new life will find that loved one on the other side of their addiction. In the meantime, we give of ourselves for love's sake. There are 1,000 different ways for us to die to ourselves, to let go of what we have that we must not cling to, or it will be lost. There are many ways for us to die to ourselves and to the greedy, self-seeking, and death-dealing ways of our time. There are 1,000 different ways to give of ourselves in hopes to bring new life into the world. And when all else is considered, there are countless ways to die, and many things that we should let go of, many ways we should die to ourselves. In a similar way, planted seeds grow, flowers draw bees, and people alike. Shade trees large, spreading out for those who are tired, providing shadow and rest for those in need. Wherever death breaks forth to new life, people notice and are drawn to life. The animals, all nature rejoices, in fact, and are changed by it. When we die to ourselves, all manner of people are drawn to the love of God that they see in the sacrifice. That's why we are drawn to Jesus, for what we see in his sacrifice. And we find that The dying is not an end, but a beginning of new things is what Jesus wants us to discover for ourselves. On the other side of each rejection of the selfish, self-advancing ways of this world is a newness of life that God calls into being. The poor find a second lease on life. The thirsty who are replenished are given opportunities to in turn live their own lives and die their own deaths in the name of God's love for the life of others. The addict is restored to the wholeness of life he was meant for. But letting go of the seeds or anything else we may have is hard. We are afraid that the seeds will die. Will they die? Letting go takes quite a bit of faith and trust unless we die. But if we hold on to the seed, it remains dead anyway. So why hold on? But the point of the seed is that it is in the moment when it appears most dead. The point of Easter, coming up, is that when things appear most dead, it can be truly said to begin to come alive. In the same way, it is precisely when we've yielded our own lives to the transformative power of God that we can truly begin to live. Jesus has called you to die to yourself so that you and others might live. So the question remains, have you died? Have you let go? But also, do seeds die? And it is troubling and scary to let go of what we have in hopes that something might grow again. To let the seed fall from our hands, whether the seed is money, time, idea, or some long-cherished tradition. God understands. God understands the fear and the discomfort letting go brings. And will see us through it. In the passage today, Jesus said, "Very truly, I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain," which is to say to us today, unless we let go of certain ways of being, what we've had in the past will remain just that, in the past, the last seed in a long line of planting and harvesting. But if it dies, the rest of the verse, if it dies, it bears much fruit. It's a promise we cling to and hope that what we let go of will bear fruit. For each of us, it will be hard, but hopeful discussions about the seeds that need planted, that's what is needed right now, and what plants need pruned. And we will do the right thing so long as we hold what we have with open hands, minds, and hearts, so that when we are called to let things go, we will find the grace, the love, the courage, the joy to do so. And if God is faithful, and God is faithful, otherwise why are we here in church? If God is faithful, then we will be amazed at what grows, but only if we are able to let some things go. But that's just part of it, letting things go, to die, right? I fear that lately we've been talking so much about suffering and death that we may miss the true point buried in this short parable about seeds and the life they grow. We've been talking about suffering and death because the themes of Lent, that church season that we find ourselves in the march up to Easter, the themes tend to call us to dreary and sorrowful topics, and we'll have more of that, trust me. Preachers preach on suffering and death until Easter. But even up till Easter and before, Jesus is always dropping clues at the life that is around the corner. And our clue today is smack dab in the middle of this metaphor that Jesus uses here. And the clue is the seed, and here it is. Seeds don't die. We know this, and Jesus knows this. They bear fruit. In time, they bear fruit. Fruit being another metaphor for the good life that comes from living as God intends us to live. Give it time. We are not called to let go of our lives so that we may die and be done with it. In other words, this is not a reckless call to sacrifice to no end. The seeds we plant by way of our efforts to share the gospel of Jesus are meant to bear fruit, to call more life into the world, greater life, and bear fruit they do. One thing I've taught my daughter since that day, when she was confused about the seeds, is this very fact. The seeds we plant often don't die. When things go well, they don't, especially when they've been strategically placed, say, in a garden. The seeds we plant in church or in the world around us may lie dormant for a while. And they do often. Some of us don't live to see what they sprout up to become. Maybe they lie there for a long while. It's no wonder we mistake them for dead. You might share a word of love that is ignored, an invitation to your church community that is politely or rudely turned down, or a labor of love that seems to make very little difference despite the effort you put in. Seeds, all of it. Seeds planted. And time will tell what fruit they bring. But we do not give of ourselves so that we may die. We lose our lives to find life. We plant seeds to reap life-giving fruit later. For now, we give of our time, money, imaginations, and other things that God has given us, knowing that they're on loan to us to be used as if they were seeds, planted, expecting as people of hope that God calls us to be, expecting them to come into life from the dirt that may still call more life from the dirt in time as it drops seeds of its own. And we call our little patch of dirt Northwood Christian Church, but perhaps you have your own. And seeds are not planted for the umpteenth time so that they die. Gardeners aren't morticians. We plant so that seeds might live. So think of your community, your church, as if it were a garden in which you strategically plant seeds of life. You invest time, money, and effort, all you can, into the lives of those around you so that they may bloom just where they are planted to grow up into life in the garden that we share. Then they will, in time, as they mature in faith, let go of the seeds they possess for the life of the very community that holds them. And Easter, it's coming, as I said, 2 weeks. Easter reminds us in one loud voice, reminds us that they will bloom in time and against the seemingly poor odds. In the face of all that chokes out life, God calls up life again and again and again from places where seeds of grace have been scattered. God calls up life from the seeds we scatter in harmony with God's work. So hold on to hope as you let loose your gifts and passions into the world. It is not for nothing. No seed planted in love will be forgotten by God. And many of them will raise into life and bless others in the world in turn. Over time, our world will transform into a garden, or perhaps something close to its original design. And the faster we plant seeds, give of our lives, our acts of service, the faster the garden grows. Wouldn't you know it? Or Jesus called laborers to the field. The harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few, is the way he put it. So we long for a new heaven and a new earth, and Jesus has called us. And didn't Jesus say that he came to bring the realm of God into our very plane of existence? We've so much to share with the world, and there's so much to be gained. But first, we got to plant some seeds. We got to give what we can. And in this form of dying, to whatever it is we must let loose of, we discover that what we give is never lost, but rather transformed into newer and greater life. Seeds don't die. And God is ever calling them from dry ground and into the light of day. So let's you and I partner up, join together, or each in our own way, plant some seeds.